Well, that's a pretty small group of us.
So far.
You feeling better today?
I'm feeling better. Yeah, it's as long as I take the pain pills right on schedule, I'm good.
Well, you're sitting up. I thought you might be laying in bed.
You know, I wondered about if I'd be all right just sitting in a chair or kind of in a recliner, but I wasn't sure how I would read everything in front of me.
Yeah, it's probably easier if you can do it. But
Yeah. Well, if we can keep the meeting under maybe an hour, I think we should be good.
unless it's a long audit report, it'll be a shorter meeting than that. So the audit report is just presenting the audit. Is that what it is?
It is.
Okay.
And of course, you can see Teresa is on, and she has, I think she's ready to answer any questions that we might have following the report. And so anyway, it should I think it looked pretty good.
Okay, good.
So it's good to have Councilman Hill on, and Cox. Can see you. Councilman Northrup. And as I had mentioned to Sean a little earlier, we'll need to excuse Councilman Osler. He's in Salt Lake. I wouldn't say that he's actually snowed in down there, but I think it's a pretty slow and go process getting home. So he asked to be excused. He didn't think he'd make it back in time. So. Well, it is 6:30. I'm looking here. We do have a quorum. Is that correct? Let's see. Three out of 5. I think that should.
That's all it takes.
That should work. So if we just wanted to start our work session here, maybe to begin with, is there anyone that would like to give the reverence tonight? And we'll forego having the Pledge of Allegiance since it'd be hard to coordinate a flag in front of all of us, but is there anyone that would like to provide us with a reverence?
I can do it if you want, Mayor.
Okay, well, Councilman Hill put his hand was up just a little before yours.
That's fine.
So, Councilman Hill, thank you. Okay, maybe we could ask if any of you had any questions as far as the minutes that you have. Is there anything that is there anything we need to review those, is there anything we need to review those for or amend them for any reasons? Okay. So Councilmember Northrup, we can't see you or I know you're on. So if you're, I didn't know if you're giving us any type of hand signal to, we wouldn't be able to see that, but can you unmute for just a minute to make sure we can communicate with you?
Okay, so she did just chat in the put a little message in the chat. So she is working on her camera, it looks like, to get that ready before the
Okay, all right. You know, now that you mention that, I ought to try and make sure I can look at that chat. Okay, there we go. All right. Okay, are there any other items that council would like to discuss during the work meeting? We might could review now. Any questions you might have, or
Do you want to talk about the meeting you had with the code enforcement officer? Since
You know-
we didn't get a chance to talk, or do you want to do that?
I actually I think took a pretty good set of minutes, but I left them over on the mayor's desk. But I could review that. That would probably be good. I think I can cover most of everything we went over. So, you know, there was a neighbor that complained about this small farm that's up in East Hooper on 4300 West. And so when we met with the code officer, she came and said they really had plans. She felt really good plans at the beginning of the year. They had made arrangements to bring a dumpster in. They had made arrangements through the sheriff's department to bring some inmates out. Of course, the reason the complaint from a neighbor is it was just kind of unsightly and wondered if things could be cleaned up. And so they made those arrangements, and she thought everything was, was being completed according to schedule until it came time for the inmates to come, and then the COVID situation hit, and they wouldn't let anyone go out. So she actually had some before pictures, because there were a group of them that kind of went over and cleaned up around her home. I know she had some goats that were there on the porch, and I don't know, she showed some before pictures and after pictures, and you could tell a significant difference, you know, around the home and things. They had cleaned up a lot, but there's still, you know, quite a bit of it looks like old farm equipment, but it still may work. I mean, I don't know whether it works or not, and she didn't know. But the neighbor was willing to gather that up and haul it off for her. But she really wanted to just take care of that herself. If it's going to be hauled off, and you know, she could probably sell it for the value of its weight, the steel and that, and get some money from it. So anyway, that's really about as far as the cleanup went, you know, just mainly around the home. She did indicate that she's had both the health department involved. They've went through the home, you know, to make sure that she's safe, and you know, I think the health department said it, you know, she's going to be okay living there, but they would like to see things cleaned up inside a little more than it was as well. She also got animal control involved, and they came out and said all her livestock were healthy. You know, what cattle she has there, the goats. She didn't mention anything about horses, but she had feed that was there that could be fed, and she was keeping them fed up, and they appeared to the animal control to be, you know, healthy enough that they couldn't find a problem there. So she actually indicated that that's about as far as they've checked on things. when they tried to go in again and visit with her at the first part of summer, then she actually had tested positive for COVID. And so they weren't able to go in at that time. And really, since then, she's tested positive twice. And so as of the other day, when she stopped in this, when the code officer came, she said their plans are now is that she thinks everything should be okay till spring, and they won't try to do a whole lot of cleanup and things during the winter, and they'll just get on top of it in early spring, and hopefully we'll just continue the process of getting things cleaned up. So it sounds like, there's been some activity there, whether it's been as fast and as progressive as what maybe the neighbor would like to see. We don't know, but at least she's been checked on and followed up with regularly.
So
So
do we feel like there's any violations there, code violations?
that's where she's kind of struggling. She can't, she doesn't know what she would be violating. They can't find, granted, there's probably some smells there that some of the neighbors may not like.
Sure.
There's probably some unsightly things that maybe they don't like. Maybe they don't like cattle up against the fence or things like that. But as far as actually violating something, they really can't. They couldn't find anything that they could really issue some type of citation for things that she's not doing. Now I haven't been up there since I don't know. I did take a ride up with Jared a little in late summer, and there's no question, things could be cleaned up, and it looks a little bit maybe a little out of place, considering all the homes that have been built around her and things like that. But I remember the day when there actually was a dairy there, years back. I mean, it was actually an active farm where they actually, milk cows and things, but that's been a long time ago. So I don't know, I guess we can just, you get to a situation like this, and I'm not exactly sure what we do. If she's not violating anything, then I don't know what we do. And Reed, maybe you have some thoughts there, but I think.
Well, I'm not familiar with the case at all. What is it that she's alleged to have done?
This is a small farm, and I don't even know how many acres there are on the plat. Shauna, I don't remember. It looks like a pretty good sized piece of ground compared to everything that's built up around her. So I would think there's 4 or 5 acres there. And so she's had a neighbor that complained that she's just not taking care of the place. And her husband did pass away here over a year ago, maybe over a year and a half ago. And so she's there alone. She does have a son that on occasion stays there with her, but he's not there all the time.
Was it a matter of just junk in her yard, or what is it?
I think it was, I don't know, Councilman Hill, thinking back at the complaint that came in, I can't remember if they actually itemized some things out. I think junk in her yard was one of the things I remember, because he was willing to haul off some of the steel and that's there.
I think the biggest complaint was the animals. Winter comes and the mud gets deeper, and the animals are standing in 2 to 3 feet of mud, and people drive by there and see that, and they're thinking, that they're abusing their animals, and so I mean it's very unsightly for sure. But when the mud gets deeper, it becomes more of an issue. And then of course the smell. And like you said, Mayor, all the homes being built around there, that place just doesn't fit with what's being built around it. It's the same old thing we hear about all the time. The homes get built and then nobody likes the smell, and all of a sudden the person that's been there for 100 years is the odd man out. So like you said, Mayor, I don't know if there's really anything we can do code violation wise. It's just an unsightly situation. So
I guess you could invite the animal resources people to come in and take a look, make sure
Well-
that the animals aren't being mistreated.
Right, and they have been. They've been there to check the animals. They, according to the report we got back from the code enforcer that met with us the other day, she said the animals are healthy. We didn't really talk about them standing in mud. I didn't even think to ask that, because when I went up in late summer, there wasn't mud around. I mean, it's been so dry. If we went up there tomorrow morning, they may very well be standing in mud. And maybe we'll just have to do that. Maybe we could just get together and a couple of us go up and just take a look at it. And if you feel like that, setting up appointment with her, I think we can do that. I know we can. I think she would be willing to meet with us if we felt that if somehow we could help her out. I was told that we probably would not want to go into her home. So I don't know.
And just to add to the mayor's point, since we have been working on this particular potential violation for quite some time, and in being considerate of the current situation that the property owner has, Iris has been really consistent in keeping contact with the property owner and trying to make a realistic timetable for this particular property owner to try to get that cleaned up, realizing that the property owner still feels like it's a functioning farm. And then trying to see what we can get her to clean up and what is technically allowed, even though maybe the neighbors don't like it. And then with that, before kind of like the spring shutdown, we had actively started working with some of our local businesses in the city, and some would be willing to donate the full dumpster and even a track hoe to go onto the property and start cleaning it off, things like that. So that's kind of where it got left off. And then the spring shut down, and then she became ill, and so it kind of just is where it's left off as of right now. But then Iris just reiterated in that meeting that, as soon as we're able to kind of come right out of the gates here in the springtime, we'll kind of re-coordinate all those same people that had offered to volunteer that time and equipment to help her clean that up. And we'll try to get that cleaned up a little bit more.
And that might be a good thing. Maybe we could reach out to her and just let her know that this would kind of be our plan, to get with her off and on, keep in touch with her. And then as soon as the weather permitting, we could maybe get with her as early as we could in the spring and make sure she's willing, make sure she's willing to let us come in and help her out with some things there. Iris did commented that, the thing we'd have to be aware of is that the things that are hauled off, even though it may look like junk, this farm equipment, there is a lot of weight there in steel. So it is worth something for someone to just come in and start gathering all that up and then haul it over to be recycled. It's probably going to, I don't know, they bring a lot of money, but probably more than what it looks like it's worth, just because it's that heavy. So we just want to make sure that we could, that would be all right with her. And I don't know, Iris kind of made it sound like that she is willing to perhaps let the city, do a little more than what they've been able to do in the past, more than what she allowed them to do in the past.
I would think you could haul it to the recycle place and give her whatever money it brings in, and at least
Give
you're
her what money? Sure.
rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Any other questions you might have? It's just one of those, in my opinion, it's just a really hard situation to deal with. It's not a black and white kind of thing. And so hopefully some of the neighbors up there, if we respond to this person that sent the complaint in and let him know that we've been in contact with her, and maybe if we can put a kind of a timetable in front of them, they'll be patient enough to let this kind of play out until until we actually can kind of get things. I will say this though, even at best, if we went in and cleaned everything up, it's still not going to fit where she lives. Just the surrounding sheds, fences, it's still going to look a little out of place. There might always be a few animals there that may cause some smells, but maybe if the neighborhood saw that the city is doing something, I mean, we really have been, I think in the past, like Shauna indicated, I think the city's tried to work on this complaint for a long time, like several years. And so we'll just, whoa, what's up with that, Councilman Hill? That looked.
You weren't supposed to see that.
Well, hey, that was easily to see and pretty impressive, actually.
Okay. She just got home.
Anyway, so I don't know. I don't know what more to say about that other than we'll stay on top of it the best we can, if there is such a thing, if we really can stay on top of it.
Well, the ultimate, I guess, would be to give her a citation and then have her be given by a judge some type of a schedule to clean it up. You'd have to have some violation you could quantify, but if she's got junk all over her yard, if she's got mud, if she's got grass overgrown, those kind of things potentially could be a violation.
Yeah. Oh, I think there could be, there's no doubt. I think there could be some things, something written up that would show she's in violation of something. Because
if you look at the city's ordinance on not taking care of your home, there are a lot of things there, and you could probably find one that she's violated if you wanted to. If she won't cooperate. Now, if she's cooperating, then you just do it as you can.
Right. If I get back to the office over there and find that there's more something I've overlooked in sharing with you, I'll sure get back in touch with you on that.
I would assume that sorry, I have my mask on because I'm still at the studio. I would assume that then if we write up for that violation, there's several other properties in Hooper that would probably stand in that same kind of violation.
Possibly.
What do we do there?
Yeah, so I mean, like normally the city's always taken this stance that we've actively and continually worked with them the best that we can. And if they were making progress on the potential violation, we've just kind of left it at that. And in this particular case, that is what was happening, considering the list of items that were there for violation. She was actively working on those in the timetable. And then really it was just April shutdown, COVID, and then you kind of lose your volunteers and you kind of lose your timetable a little bit.
The loss of the inmate workforce really was pretty significant with a project like this. In fact, I think the inmates helped quite a bit here in Hooper off and on, and did some real mean, they were a good workforce that is no longer available. But maybe later on in the year, next year, maybe they will become available again.
And I think the property owner is now at a point where she's more willing to let us do that. Where last April, it was still really a struggle to get her to allow us on the property, to get her to allow somebody to take some of those possessions from the property. And so I think with her being ill this last year, I think she's come to a point where she's more willing to allow us to go and do that for her. And we'll still work on the contacts we had right before May, June for their donation of time and equipment.
Of course, the ultimate would be that you cite her. If she doesn't do it, you hire people to go in and do it, and then you put a lien on her property taxes. And that's kind of the outside, but you can do that if you need to.
Right, and I don't know if council remembers, we did have that conversation for abatement on this particular property. And Iris's guess for that was going to be like right around $60,000. So we've just tried to really err on making her make steps in progress so we don't actually have to lien the property and risk not getting a chunk of that money back.
Well, it looks like we still have a couple minutes. If there's any other items you'd want to discuss during the work session. Otherwise, we'll just sit back and get comfortable and wait till 7 o'clock. I could make just one comment. Our Public Works Director, Jared Hancock, did give a call here just a little bit ago and say that they pretty well had all the streets cleaned up, and they've pulled all the trucks back over to the shop. They've got them all loaded with salt and sand, and with the idea that this storm may be over about 8 o'clock or a little after that, and then they'll make one last go over the city one last time to make sure all the roads are in good shape. And I believe, Shauna, the cards that the sheriff's office helped us put out, right? Those, if there were cars parked out on the streets, a little card was put on their windshield telling them that, you know, once the snow season starts, that they need to keep their streets, their cars off the streets so that the snowplows could get through and keep the streets cleaned up. So hopefully Jared didn't indicate that there were a lot of cars that were left on the street or anything like that. So hopefully all that worked out. Okay, well, having said that, and if there's no other items for the work session, I guess we will officially start our Hooper City Council meeting for Thursday, December 17th, 2020. We'll now call this meeting to order, and we have asked Councilman Hill if he would lead us in a reverence. So we'll do that at this time.
Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for this evening we have together as a city council. We're thankful, Father, for the favorable circumstances in which we live. We're thankful for all the bounteous blessings that Thou gives us in our community and our nation. We ask, Father, for a blessing upon our meeting tonight, that we may discuss the things that are pertinent to our community, that we may help those and talk about those issues that are of utmost importance. We're grateful for the time of year that it is, and we ask that we can focus on the season and what it really means. We're thankful for all the blessings that come to us in our community, and we ask a blessing upon all of our citizens and our nation and our leaders and those who serve and protect us. We're grateful for all we have and pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilman Hill. As we mentioned earlier, we'll forego having a pledge of allegiance because it would be a little hard to coordinate that, this being a Zoom meeting. So this time we'll just ask, I can't think that there would be any conflicts of interest with any agenda item, but if there happen to be, we would ask that those be disclosed at this time. Okay, seeing none. I don't know if everyone was on when I mentioned that Councilman Osler is tied up in Salt Lake. So he is not able to get home in time for the meeting. So we'll excuse him due to weather. Okay, if you've all had a chance to look over the minutes, and if there's not any amendments or changes that need to be made with those, we would entertain a motion to approve those.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes for, I always forget the date, Thursday, December 3rd.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Cox and a second from Northrup. Councilman Northrup, is there any other discussion on that? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Were there any opposed? Okay, so those are approved. Okay, next on the agenda, we have an audit presentation that will have presented to us. I'm not sure just who will do that first. I know that Ron Stewart will be part of that presentation. Maybe you could help me out there. Ron, will you be the one that will be presenting that audit review to the council?
Yes, I'll be presenting the audit report. I think Nicole, was planning on being here to kind of go over the financial statements, but yes, I'm ready to present the audit report for sure.
Okay, I'm not sure I see Nicole on here. Do you see her, Shauna?
I don't see Nicole like by name. Oh, you know what? There she is. Hold on. I know she had one other meeting,
Oh,
so
there we
she's
go.
gonna cut it close running over, but I think she just logged on.
Okay, so welcome, Nicole, and maybe you're up at this time for just kind of a financial report, and then we'll go over to Ron for a report on the audit.
Okay, sorry I was a few minutes late. I was finishing up another report. Thursdays are kind of popular, I guess. Okay. First of all, thank you for having me. Misty and Shauna, they do a great job. Sorry, I was just Teresa and Shauna do a great job. Teresa does a great job keeping track of everything and putting things where they need to go. It makes my job a lot easier. And you as the council keeping within the budget and making sure that the city does that makes everything just run a lot more smoothly. I'm going to start on page 9. Am I okay to share my screen?
Yeah. You should be just fine to share your screen.
Okay. Let me. Here we go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah, you're on.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go to page 9 on the audit report, which I think is like page 10 or so, 10 or 11 of the PDF. Or more, 13. So I wanted to start here and just go over a couple of things really quickly and just give some highlights about the year and some highlights about the financials. The first one is this right here, these two totals together. This is the total cash that's that the city has currently, and that's across all of the funds. And then down here, this is the summary, and we'll go through the adjustments in those amounts of all of the assets within the city as well currently, for both the government and the business type activities. The business type is the utility funds. And this is also adjusted for depreciation over on this side right here. Down at the bottom, sorry, I don't do well with Zoom. I have found I don't like it as much, but we'll work with it. The total net position is basically all of your assets, and you take away all of your liabilities, and you're left with your net position. And that overall from last year to this year increased by 6%, by $1.9 million. So that's assets, that's cash, things like that was the difference in this $32,000 down here. Okay, I'm going to skip a couple pages ahead. And come to the general fund statements. And please, if you have any questions with me sharing my screen, I only can see a few faces. So if you have any questions, please just shout it out or let me know, or Shauna can tell me if there's anyone that has any questions or comments.
Okay, so when you said you're going to skip a few pages ahead, are you going
sorry.
towards the front?
I'm on page 11 now,
Okay.
down here. Sorry, I will make sure to say the page numbers. So this is in the general fund and the capital projects fund, which create the total all of the government funds. Total cash and restricted cash is about $1.2 million. In prior years, sorry, my notes are in a different place. In prior years, oh, I don't have that. I thought I had written what the prior year was. I apologize. And I don't remember what the figure is right now. I apologize. So we're just going to move on. So this accounts receivable amount, this is essentially money that the city received for services prior to the end of the fiscal year. Prepaid expenses are essentially insurance, the Utah Cities and Leagues. These are expenses that are paid prior to June 30th that are actually for the fiscal year that we're currently in. And then this due from other governments is a combination of a couple of things. It's some property taxes that are ready to come in but haven't been received yet, as well as the estimate for, based on your certified tax rate, what you're going to be getting in November. And that's also shows up down here. So even though you haven't received it here, you don't get to count it as income. It's this $229,000 down here. Accounts payable, this total right here, is essentially for expenses that happened prior to June 30th and were paid after the June 30th date. And this accrued liabilities is payroll, wages, benefits, things like that that were incurred prior to that June 30th date as well, but paid after the fact. Deposits and bonds, this is your construction bonds, your deposits that you take from all of the different construction accounts and things like that. There's a couple of new accounts down here. The first I already said is the property tax. This is based on your certified tax rate that you're going to get, or that you would have gotten, I guess, this month, probably. And then the second one was tomato days. In the past, the assumption has always made that tomato days was essentially the same revenue and expenses every year. And so we didn't really accrue it into any single given year. So when you have your 2019 tomato days that you had last year, some of it was paid out and some revenue was received in 2018. Some of it was received in 2019, or rather 2019 and 2020. And we just left it there with the assumption that it's always the same. Well, we know that this year it wasn't the same. Not only did we not have the expenses that we normally have, but there also was not the revenue that we normally have. And so after discussion with Ryan, the partner at the firm, as well as Teresa, we thought if there was a year to make it, to write true it up, it would be this year, to give a clear picture of this was the revenue for the September 2019 tomato days and the expenses for that. And what that means is that your fiscal year ends, and then starting in January, you started collecting revenue. This is the unearned revenue. So this is some ramp grant is in there, some sponsorships and things like that were paid, but were actually for the 2020 Tomato Days event, which was actually in this fiscal year, if that makes sense. I hope I'm trying to explain it. But what that means is then in any year, you can look at your financial statements and it will have the true revenue and expense for that single event and not split up over 2 years like it's always been. The other new addition is this CARES Act funding. The government accounting standards has said that because the CARES Act funding can be or has to be returned if it's not spent, you can't include it in your revenue until you've incurred those expenses to be able to keep it. And so this $261,000 is the deferral of that revenue, because prior to June 30th, you had only spent about $4,000, and we'll see that a little bit later, of that CARES Act funding. Later in the fiscal year, 90% of that was then sent to the county of that first tranche payment. So the non-spendable, this $32,000 is actually the same amount as this prepaid expense. Sorry, let me back up just a little bit. I think there's a couple of new people on the council, so if you have questions, please feel free to ask. We're going to talk about this fund balances. This is basically taking all of the assets of the government funds, subtracting out those liabilities, those things that are owed, the money that we can't count yet, and then that's left over with this pot. And everything that's in this pot is then broken out. So the non-spendable is obviously prepaid expenses. You don't have that money anymore, so you can't do anything with it. Then these are restricted monies. First is Class C roads. This is money that you receive every year for Class C roads to be expended for those purposes. And whatever's not used gets put aside and is restricted for future use. So that balance is at $840,000. Local option transit. This is a new tax that was added in a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I believe that there's nothing that's been spent to date on that. I clarified with Teresa what that can be spent for, which is essentially maintenance, construction, and I don't remember the exact wording of roadways, of public walkways, things like that, is what this local option transit can be used for. And so going forward, you can know that that's money that's restricted, can only be spent for that. So as you look at projects that you need to be doing around the city, you can consider that. And then this is ramp grant. that was received during the fiscal year. This was actually the $10,000 that was for the tomato days. That is restricted income. And then the remaining amount is unassigned and can be used for general operation of the city. So rather than go to the revenue statement, I'm actually going to skip to the back because it has a little bit more detail. It's a budget to actual. It's page 41 in the financial packet. Right here. Okay. Okay, so this is so this has your original budget, your amended budget, and then the comparison for the actual amount spent. As you can see, the revenues came in $134,000, or not the revenues, but the taxes themselves came in $134,000 above what was budgeted. Down in licenses and permits, that came in $28,000 above what was budgeted, and that one didn't get adjusted at all between those 2 years. The Class C roads came in a little bit higher as well, of $9,700 higher. Charges for services dropped pretty significantly, $15,000 for what's in there. A lot of that was due to refunding of people who had reserved the parks, especially this one right here. And then the zoning and subdivision fees was simply just fewer construction than was anticipated. And then down to the other revenues, we have fines that came in a little under budget, tomato days. So because of the adjustment that we made, this is the actual revenue for the event, for the total event for the September 2019 tomato days that was held during the fiscal year. And then the interest earnings was pretty significantly lower than last year due to the adjustment of the interest rates from March. It kind of went down, and from March to April. Going to the next page is our expenditures. In the total government, we actually, the general government expenditures came in fairly close actually to the original budget. It was amended, but there were some other things that came in a little bit over, such as in the office. And that's also where the additional CARES Act money was spent, about $4,000 that I had said was put in that office line item there. Sheriff and public safety came in under budget, $37,000. And then this right here is the actual expenditures for the 2019 event. So as you recall, if we go back up, the revenues for it were $111,000, and that includes the ramp grant, and then all of the sponsorships and fees and entrance fees and things like that. And the expenditures for that event was just under $85,000. So there was about a $25,000 net amount that was added to the city to cover, you've got wages that you pay for. I know that's a big overtime weekend for the city, and resources for the city, and there was plenty in there to cover those additional costs that you incur. In the highways and public improvements, everything came in well under budget. There was in Class C roads, that $800,000 in restricted fund balance is due to this. You receive the money and you don't quite expend all of it, and so the rest of it goes into there. So that's what that amount is right there. Came in $153,000 under budget. And then in parks, that came under budget as well, $38,000. Most of the expenditures came in well under the budgeted amount. And then community development also came in just a little bit under budget. The original budget had an appropriation of $267,000 of fund balance that needed to be used to cover the budget. And then it went to $396,000 when we did the amendment, and our actual budget we came in just needing to put in, or needing to use 26,000 instead of these larger amounts. As you can see, the total expenditures came in $250,000 under the total budget for the general fund. Are there any questions on that? Okay, I want to jump back into the statements. So we're going to go to page 15. So this is all in the utility fund, which includes mostly for sewer, and then it also includes stormwater and garbage in there as well. So the cash in that fund at the end of the year was just over $2 million with $50,000 in inventory. And those are the, Shawnee, you might have to help me out. What are the things called that they have for the sewer? Pits? I think that they're pits that the sewer has that were purchased a couple of years ago and just are sitting there waiting to be used. So that's what that inventory is. Down here, these are the assets for the sewer and stormwater systems right here for net capital assets of $16 million for the utility fund. If we go down a little bit further, and we'll talk about the debt here in a little bit, but this is the current, the amount of the debt payment that's due in the 2021 fiscal year. This is the remaining amount. Like I said, I'll show you a schedule a little bit later that will show that in more detail. And then this is the pot for the utility fund. So after you take all of your assets and remove what you have to pay out in all of these liabilities, that leaves you with this pot. And of that, 7 million of it is assets. So you can't really do anything with that. But it is assets that are there and owned. This $307,000 is, and $622,000 are amounts that have to be held for the bond, per the bond requirements. And then the rest of it is unrestricted. This is amounts that an amount that can be used for operating, for servicing the utility fund. On the next page, this is the revenue and expense statement for the utility fund. Total charges and connection fees is $1.9 million. And I do have that. Last year it was $1.8 million. So it went up about $65,000, $70,000 over last year. Salaries and benefits, a portion of the salaries that are allocated to the utility fund, and then maintenance supplies, professional and technical. This is another one that has a lot of expenses that are allocated between the general fund and the utility fund. Utilities for all of the pumps and all of the stations and things like that, depreciation on the equipment. And then this is the garbage contract. The interest, there we go. Interest this year did go down a little bit. As I said earlier, this one went from $28,000 to $21,000. I didn't go over it in the general fund, but it went from $129,000 in 2019 to just under $100,000 this year. And I would imagine going into 2021, it's still going to be even lower. So the impact fees right here, we're really close to what it was in 2019. That was down about $9,000, which left a net income of $208,000. The biggest thing with the utility funds, with the business-like funds, as they're referred to, is to make sure that they are self-sufficient. You don't want to be using government funds to make these, so you want to make sure that you're charging rates and receiving fees and things that will cover all of the expenses that are incurred in there. And as you can see, this does have a net income, which is then added to the pot of operating and fund balance to be used. Last year, the net income was $280,000. So it wasn't quite as high as last year, but still an increase to that fund balance. Okay, so now we're gonna go into the notes. We're gonna go to page 30. Oh, sorry, I went too far. Okay, this is the adjustment in capital assets. So construction in progress, there was a lot of projects that were finished. And so we moved them out of construction in progress and they were added to infrastructure. This was mostly the big road projects that have been finishing up, that have been in construction for the last couple of years. That's all been sitting in that construction in progress until the projects were complete. There is still a little bit in projects. I want to say the 5500 South sidewalk is what most of this is right here, as that project has just started in this last year. There was some additional improvements that were added, as well as some a truck that was added. And then this was the finishing of the road project, which substantially increased the total infrastructure for the city, infrastructure value for the city. And then taking into account depreciation for all of them, the net assets for the government are $19,406,000, with $563,000 in depreciation expense just for this year. And then going into the utility fund, there were no additions or deletions, changes in the actual assets this year. So just the depreciation of $493,000. I'm going to go ahead and go just to the next page here. This has the summary of the liabilities, the long-term liabilities for the city. In the government, the only things that are in there are the pension liability, as well as compensated absences. And this is basically the accrued vacation and that can be paid out upon termination, is kept track of as a liability to the city. And then in the water fund, we have, here's the loan amount. So at the beginning of the year, the loan amount was $9,055,000 with a principal payment of $405,000. And so now the principal balance is $8,650,000 with $410,000 of that due in this fiscal year that we're currently in. This impact fee payable, $29,812. This is the portion of impact fee that goes to Central Weber. Compensated absences for wages that are in the water fund, and then the pension liability right here. If we go to the next page, this has the breakdown of the payments that are still remaining on that bond for the next 5 years, and then the chunks of it for each 5 years following that, with the ending balance of $8.65 million. And that is a 0% bond, if I remember correctly. And as far as summarizing the statements and the changes, that's kind of all that I had. If anyone does anyone have any questions?
Well, Nicole, it looks like everyone seemed satisfied with your financial report. I don't see any.
And then I'm going to just go ahead and turn the time to Ron then.
Okay.
Well, thank you. Glad to be with you guys. Nicole's done a really good job of going through the financial statements and kind of telling you what happened during the year. So what I'd like to do is just take a couple of minutes and tell you what we do as auditors and kind of what we did for your city this year. So as auditors, there's really three things that we're looking at. We want to make sure that your financial statements are materially correct. You can rely upon those numbers. We want to make sure that your internal controls are designed and they're implemented and they're working properly. And we want to make sure you're in compliance with state law. So what I'd like to do is I'll just go through each one of those and kind of tell you what we do to come to those conclusions. Obviously, the easiest and the most effective way of verifying a balance is to confirm it with an outside party. So we take the look at the trial balance of the city, and then we'll confirm it with outside parties for cash. We'll do that for receivables, capital assets, long-term debt, and then some of your major revenues and expenses. We'll pull confirmations for those to verify that the balances that we see on the trial balance match what they're saying. In addition to that, we pull a lot of invoices. We pull invoices at the beginning of the audit as a random sample. We'll look at those to make sure that they're properly coded, they're put in the right GL account, the check matches, and it just gives us a good feel of how the city is doing and what's happening out throughout the city during the year. We pull invoices for fixed assets. We'll pull invoices for expenses that happen after the end of the year to make sure that they're coded in the proper period. And then we'll pull invoices for just random expenses to look through those and make sure that those are matching what we're seeing. We also recalculate balances. So there's calculations on the financial statements, and we want to make sure that those calculations are right. So we'll take the accruals for compensated absences and payroll, and we'll recalculate those balances to make sure they're reasonable and they match what we're showing on the financials. And then we also we do a lot of analytical reviews. So at the beginning of the audit, we'll take a sample, we'll take a review, and we'll look at this year and compare it to last year. Make sure that there aren't any big differences. That kind of helps us decide where we want to go and what we want to look at as we perform the audit. And then we'll start seeing, as we see those, and we'll start asking questions and designing our tests. As we're doing the test of balances, we also look at the analyticals to see, does it make sense? Is there a big change? Did something happen during the year? And then we start asking questions and kind of digging in more into those. And at the end of the year, we do at the end of the audit, we do that as well. We'll pull another analytical review and we'll look to see, to make sure, did we catch everything? Is there anything that we see at the end that still we don't understand, that we need to ask questions and get comfortable with? So that's kind of what we do as auditors, plus a number of other tests that we perform, but that's what we do to kind of come to the conclusion that your financial statements that you have in front of you, you can rely on, and they're materially correct. And our opinion on that, if you look at the auditor's report, which is on page 1 of your packet, it says, in our opinion, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business activities, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of the city as of June 30th, 2020, and the respective changes in financial position and, where applicable, cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That is an unmodified opinion, a clean opinion, or the best opinion that you can receive. So as we've gone through our testing and we've done our procedures, we feel like that the financial statements you have in front of you are materially correct and you can rely on those numbers, and that's our opinion on that. Second thing we do as auditors is look at internal controls. Like I said, we want to make sure that they're designed, that they're implemented, and they're working. So we'll do that in a number of ways. We do that through interviews, walkthroughs, and observations. So we want to just see, are the controls working? Are your assets being protected? So as we're doing our testing, we're also looking at those controls. As we pull invoices, we're also looking to make sure that there's approvals and those things to make sure those controls are working. And then we'll take invoices and we'll kind of walk them through the process from the invoice and see that it's the financial statements and it's meeting all those criteria as it goes. While we don't necessarily give you an opinion on internal controls, if there's something that comes to our attention, if a portion of the city just isn't working or there just aren't controls, that would be considered a material weakness. If there's controls but they're just not working properly, in a few instances, and then we would consider that a significant deficiency. Through our interviews and walkthroughs and observations, we didn't find anything that would rise to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness. So we feel like the controls of the city are working, that they're implemented and they're designed effectively. So we find no issues there. The third thing we do is look at state compliance. So the state auditor gives us certain procedures that we're supposed to follow on a 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year rotating basis. And so we'll pull those to make sure that through those periods, you're being covered in each one of those areas. And then we'll perform those procedures to make sure you're in compliance with state law. So the back of the report, very last couple of pages, is our report on the state compliance. So some of the things we looked at this year were budgetary compliance, fund balance, fraud risk assessment, restricted taxes, Open and Public Meetings Act, public treasurer's bond, and cash management. So we went through those procedures and performed those tests that the state auditors set out for us. And we found that there were no issues or findings that we needed to bring to your attention. So in our opinion, in that paragraph, says in our opinion, Hooper City complied in all material respects with the state compliance requirements referred to above for the year ended June 30th, 2020. So through the testing that we performed, and we found that there were no issues or findings that we needed to bring to your attention tonight. So that's a really quick review of what we do as auditors and how we come to the conclusions that we do. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has.
Well, I would say, and to summarize that, it was a very clean audit. Does that summarize it?
Very well. Yep. Yeah, but you guys do a good job. I think using the resources of an outside party make it really clean too. So I think you're in a really, really good shape.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's all. That's always good to hear. Well, thank you, Ron, and thank you, Nicole, for going over the audit as well as our financial report. Of course, we really appreciate our staff here at Hooper City that helps you come to that conclusion that we're in good hands here. So we appreciate that.
Sure. Yep, they do a good job.
Okay, if there are no questions there, we do have a point here in our agenda where we could have a citizen's comment. Shauna, I don't know if there's been any that have come in before our meeting or during our meeting that any citizen may have a comment, or are you aware of any?
I haven't received any mailed in public comment, and then I don't show anybody in the chat.
Okay. Okay, seeing that there are no citizens' comments, we'll move on to city business. The first item being approval of the appointed planning commission members. The commission members whose terms were up as of, would be up as of the end of this year were Mary Simpson and Bryce Wilcox. And then we had Jacob Draper, who resigned. His term would have also been up at the end of this year. And he sent a letter in indicating that he really appreciated having served on the commission, and but he wanted to resign as of immediately, is what his memo said. So we appreciate the work that that Jacob did on the commission. So as far as new to replace these or keep those who are currently on the commission, Mary Simpson has agreed to extend her term for another 4 years. Bryce Wilcox has also agreed to extend his term for another 4 years. And then we've asked that Sheldon Greener be, we've appointed him to be on the planning commission and would encourage the council to approve him. The other two will remain on there, Amanda Prince and Nathan Platt. So do you have any questions about those appointments?
Mayor, I have a question. Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't Amanda and Bryce just appointed this year together at the same time?
They were appointed together, but they completed different terms of those who had left the commission, namely myself and Cindy Cock. Cindy Cox. So our terms, Cindy had one more, let's see, I guess we were just the same. So our terms would have been, we still had until December 31st of 2022 to complete our terms. So both Amanda, well, not both, but Amanda Prince will complete that term up through December 31st of 2022, along with Nathan Platt, who was already serving on the commission.
So whose term expired this year? Was that yours or was that Cindy's?
So that would have been mine. That would
Okay.
have expired, and
I think mine did. I would have been done.
So Amanda and Bryce should have the same ending date then, correct?
Amanda would be 2 years earlier. She just has until 2022 to. So one of us, Cindy, and I'd have to go back and look, one of us had 2 more years to serve where the other one of us may have been completed. And I don't know, Shauna, I don't have that record right here in front of me.
Yeah, I can grab it. Just give me 1 second. I don't have it in front of me, but I can get those. So it's just been it has been just a rolling list that I have in the office. So let me just give me a second and I can tell you for sure who replaced.
No, I
And it-
believe if
I don't
Shauna, I
matter.
believe you, you're good.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay, yeah.
No, I just thought they were the same ending date because they
It
were.
is
appointed
true.
to-
Yeah, one took over for Cindy, and I think she was actually the longer term, and then one took over for Dale, which was the shorter term.
Okay, perfect.
And I'd have to go back to see which one that was for sure.
That's great. Thanks.
That's as I remember it too, Shauna. I think Bryce took over for me and Amanda took over for Cindy.
Right.
So do you have any questions on that? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve.
Mayor,
Yes.
did you have any other interest to be on the planning commission, or was because Sheldon's been so actively involved, it was just offered to him?
Sheldon has been actively involved and has kind of had a desire to serve, as you know, on the council as well as the commission. So we appointed him. Are there any other questions? If not, we would entertain a motion to approve Mary Simpson, Sheldon Greener, and Bryce Wilcox to a 4-year term that would end December 31st, 2024.
I'll make the motion that we appoint or reappoint Mary Simpson, Sheldon Greener, and Bryce Wilcox to the Hooper City Planning Commission through December 31st of 2024.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Hill and a second from Councilman Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Were there any opposed? Okay. Okay, the next item of city business is the approval of the 2021 council meeting schedule. And I believe each of you have a copy of that with your packet. And I think it's pretty straightforward. When we get down to September, you'll see there's a note there that there could be a possible cancellation of our city council due to tomato days. If for some reason there's if we're all so busy, right, we're all completing all these assignments with tomato days that we would have to reschedule that. We would do that at that time. We wouldn't try to reschedule that now, but as we get into September or close to September, I think we'll have a feel for if those dates would need to be rescheduled. That also includes a work meeting on the 5th Thursday as needed, and work sessions start at 6:30. So are there any questions with that schedule? And if not, we would entertain a motion to approve the Hooper City Council schedule for 2021.
Have we always had that option of the 5th Thursday as needed? Has that always been in place?
That's actually always been in place.
It's part of our guidelines.
But we've just never had a meeting on that 5th Thursday.
That's
Okay.
correct. Yeah, I don't think it's ever been actually a Thursday that's been utilized.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's I don't know how many 5th Thursdays there are in 2021, but I think we ought to utilize that time for a work meeting. Just thought.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the Hooper City meeting schedule for 2021 as currently reviewed, with the one date in September as a possible cancellation.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Hill. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second from Councilman Cox. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Was there any opposed? Okay. Okay, at this time on the agenda, again, we have a time here when we would have a citizen's comment, but unless there's been some that have come in since we last asked for those comments, then Shauna, have there been any changes with that?
Sorry, I don't. Give me a minute. I'm juggling.
All right.
Oh.
Well, we can see you have two screens up. Hooper City is you, as well as you are you.
Okay, I don't show anybody currently in the chat, and I haven't had any requests in the email.
Okay. So seeing that there were not any citizens' comments, we would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn, but first I want to congratulate and welcome Sheldon Greener on board. So I think he'll be a great asset to the city planning commission.
And it looks like Sheldon's on. So
Right.
yes, congratulations, Sheldon.
With that,
Well, if you can hear me, thank you very much.
Yeah, good job, Sheldon.
I'll make a motion now. We adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I'll second it, but I'll also tell everybody Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
For the
Aye.
adjourn-
Aye.
Any opposed? And I too wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and I hope I get to maybe stop by your houses without really taking a long visit, but maybe just stop and visit with you for just 30 seconds over the next week or so. Anyway, it's been a different year for us. So anyway, this meeting's adjourned. And thank you.